Hello, my fellow queens. Listen, until YouTube is my full-time job, I haven't got time to put makeup on every time I want to film a video. So this is what you get. I've had this Burger King crown forever, but you never know. Never throw away a prop. You never know when it's going to come in handy. And also, this little flower from Plants vs. Zombies. So, we are here today with another book review, this time a YA thriller. You guys know that I love a good thriller. And also, I was excited to finally get a chance to get to this book by fellow authortuber Alexa Dunn. Now, Alexa has not been very prolific lately. I was just checking her channel and she last posted a month ago, and then before that, it had been like 3 months since she had posted, so 4 months now since she last posted, so she's definitely backed off of YouTube quite a bit. I'm sure it's because she's just been very busy with her actual life and her writing career, and I know that this book was the book that came off directly after her mother's death, which does influence the book slightly, and we might talk about that a little bit. So she's got a lot on her plate. So while I am sad that I've not seen her face around YouTube very much, I'm still glad that I got to read her book. My white balance is off today, as per usual. It's this shirt. It's a pale blue, and so my white balance, it just, what are we doing? YouTubers, honestly, we have no idea what we're doing. We just try our best. Anyway, most of you just listen to this in your pocket anyway, so you don't have to look at my face. So lucky you, this will be another one of those that you can probably just listen to. Enjoy your time washing the dishes, going for a walk, doing whatever other chores that you do while you listen to my book reviews. Today, of course, we are talking about Pretty Dead Queens, which is Alexa Dunn's 4th book, I believe. Let's read the synopsis. Seaview High's homecoming queen is dead, and she's not the first. A thriller about a decades-old mystery, a copycat killing, and a teen who won't stop until she's discovered the truth. That's one of the aspects I want to talk about. After the death of her mother, screw cancer, 17-year-old Celia Ellis goes to live with her estranged grandmother, a celebrated author whose Victorian mansion is as creepy as the murder mystery she writes. On the surface, life is utterly ordinary in the California coastal town, until the homecoming queen is murdered, and she's not Seaview High's first pretty dead queen. With a copycat killer on the loose, Cecilia throws herself into the investigation, determined to crack the case, like the heroines in her grandmother's books. But the more Cecilia digs into the town's secrets, the more she worries that her own mystery might not have a storybook ending. Bum bum bum. So I will say, because we'd like to talk about the blurb, that blurb, pretty accurate, doesn't exaggerate too much or promise anything that doesn't really happen. It's a fairly vague blurb, but this is a thriller, you don't want to give too much away. Thriller/murder mystery. So, as usual, I didn't take any notes because I just listened to these at work now, but let's just go on my rundown. Let's start with the characters. There are actually quite a lot of characters, and I did find that a little frustrating sometimes. Like Cecilia, you're breaking my heart, goes to this new school and she immediately makes herself she gets adopted into this girl group immediately. And while it was cool to see that there wasn't really girl hate in this book, I really appreciated that. There was a little bit, but really not that much. I really appreciated seeing that. It also did seem very Bella Swan, where this main character just walks into the town and immediately the most popular group of girls adopts her and are just her best friends after that. It's kind of like if in Mean Girls, Katie had gone to the school and been immediately adopted by Regina George, and then that was never questioned. But let's talk about Celia. Cecilia, our lead character. She was fine. She was your standard teenage lead in any of these kinds of books. Just a young girl coming off of a very sad situation, her mother's death, which you could definitely tell that Alexa was reaching into her own personal experience for that. I suspect that perhaps at the beginning of this book, when it was first being drafted, that there was no dead mother, but now there is, because Alexa, as I said, has that personal experience. And honestly, the character sort of dealing with memories of her mother and dealing with that having been a situation, even though it's a bit in the past, she still has that. Definitely felt like the most natural and real characterization for me. Everything else was pretty bog standard teenaged YA thriller lead. She's pretty, but not too pretty, not so pretty as to be threatening to any of her hot friends. The boys are all interested in her, like lots of boys are interested in her. I kind of lost track. She's well liked, but she doesn't stand out too much, and of course, she just has to solve the mystery, which was a problem that I had, and I was going to talk about that in plot, but I might just talk about that in character, because, like, I never felt like there was a good reason for her to want to solve the mystery. Like, yes, the first queen who died in the past during her grandmother's high school years, it was like a copycat. It was related, and she kind of has that tie because her grandmother went to school with the first dead queen, but that's it. And I never really understood why she was so tenaciously following this case. There was never for me a solid reason. It wasn't like she was a mystery buff. Like, we have the part of her grandmother being a prolific mystery writer. She's basically the Nora Roberts. Like, that's who I immediately compared her to in my mind. She's Nora Roberts because she's got a lot of books and they're very popular with a certain crowd, and she has like conventions in her hometown, like I believe Nora Roberts does. So she's a lot like that. But the main character isn't really into her grandmother's books. She's read one of them and doesn't really have any interest in reading the others, which is fine, but that would have given her an in to be like, ooh, my grandmother writes mysteries and I want to solve this mystery. I grew up on my grandmother's mystery books and now I want to solve this crime. Like, I kept waiting for the driving force of why she keeps doing this, and it was never there. She just was doing it because she was the main character in a thriller book. Would have loved to see a little bit more, motivation there. The grandmother is also an interesting character. Like I said, she is a very famous and prolific mystery writer. She writes everything, apparently, from cozies to like slashers. Just, if somebody's dead and there's a mystery, grandma has written it. And there are a lot of things in this that definitely came from Alexa's own experiences. There are nods to things that are happening in the publishing industry during the time that this book was being written, which do date it a little bit. Like, I got the references, but those references are immediately gonna be like lost in like a couple more years and we won't have any idea what those are references to. It was kind of cool to see that like writer's angle. I almost wished that Alexa didn't write this for teens and instead had the author grandmother as the main character trying to solve the case. That would have fundamentally changed the book, obviously, but I would have been into it. And it would have made more sense for the grandmother to have a reason to solve the case. It would have been very Murder, She Wrote, if you will. And yes, we already have Murder, She Wrote, so maybe that would be too similar, but I think you could make it different enough because the grandmother has a very different personality from Jessica Fletcher. There are some interchangeable hot boys who want to date the main character, and she does date one of them in this story, and I don't care about any of them. Yes, they did have different backstories, and Alexa did try to give them at least somewhat different personalities, but they were just both kind of just like dudes. Just teenage dudes. I don't know, maybe it's because I'm 37, but teenage dudes don't impress me at all. And of course she had her girlfriends who, oh my gosh, I forgot to empty the memory card. She had her girlfriends who liked her instantly, and even though one of them is killed, they still continue to like her and are fine with helping her solve the case. Mostly she has so many girlfriends so they can all help her solve the case. None of them want to solve it themselves. They want to help her, and they exist to facilitate her solving of the case, getting her into new situations, getting her into different places, getting her into police files and into the school and blah, blah, blah. All of her friends exist as like tools to get her places to solve the case. All right, I need to empty my memory card. I'll be right back.
A few moments later.
And we're back. Thanks for waiting. Although this would be the perfect time, my husband has pointed out that I really should stop loading up the ends of my videos with so much information because nobody watches to the ends anyway, so I'm gonna try to start remembering to put it in the middle of my videos. Hey, hello, I'm Julian. I'm my developmental editor, so if you would like your book developmentally edited, you could potentially hit me up on Fiverr, especially if you like my style. If you want to support the channel here, I do have a Patreon where you can not only support me, but get all sorts of fun patron rewards, including getting to boss me around and tell me what books to read. Or if you just want to support me one time because Patreon is a hassle, I do have a Ko-fi, coffee, whatever it's called, so you can support me over there. Always tip your book reviewer. And last but not least, of course, I am also a book writer, and you can find all of my books for sale now on Amazon. And now, back back to our review. So I think that pretty much covers all the characters. Of course, there are other adults like the police chief and the mayor and just some other people who are mostly around to be suspects or just up to shenanigans. None of them really get any kind of deep personalities. Now, normally I would talk about world building, but there's not a whole lot to talk about with world building because this is set in our world and there are no other like weird or fantastical elements except for that a teenage girl is so easily able to break into like all of these systems. She breaks into the police systems, she breaks into a therapist's systems. She gets into everything. She figures out passwords. She sneaks. She stealth. Gets into everywhere and everything. She's like a raccoon. That's probably the most fantastical element. But of course, this is a thriller and those live and die on their plot. Thrillers have a lot of expected tropes and they have a certain structure that they tend to follow, and I know from watching Alexa's videos that she does follow these structures fairly rigidly because she is a pantser like myself, and so she uses those structures to make sure that her pantser ways do not get out of control and do follow what a thriller is expected to be. Unfortunately, those expectations shoot Alexa in the foot just a little bit within this book, because if you know her writing style, if you've read her other books, and you're familiar with thrillers, it is so ridiculously easy to figure out who the killer is. I had my guess or guesses pretty well solidified at the beginning of the book, and I was not proven wrong. And I didn't do it because the author was leaving me clever clues so I could figure out the case by myself. No, I did it by process of elimination, going, well, I know Alexa's style, and this, and this person will never be the killer. She wouldn't make them the killer. So it has to be this person. And also I know that in thrillers, the trope is for this person to be the killer, and I know that Alexa follows the script for thrillers pretty closely, so this person is probably the killer, and I was correct. And that's a little bit too bad, but this is a YA thriller, so presumably it is going out to an audience who is not overly familiar with thrillers yet. So some of these things that feel so obvious to me might feel like completely out of the blue to them. Like they might be shocked and shooketh by the ending, where I was able to predict it by knowing the tropes and knowing Alexa as an author. And I mean, it is a little bit cool. Like, what sort of things about my writing are people going to find and be like, yep, this is for sure a Julian book. Yes, this is Julian's style. Yes, she includes these things. And hopefully people will enjoy the things that I include in my books. And I wasn't mad that I could identify these things, knowing Alexa and her style. I wasn't mad, I was disappointed. Another thing that I know about Alexa's style is she likes to cover social issues, so do I. But where I try to keep them more like themes that you can pick up on and not necessarily as in your face, personally, Alexa really likes to make sure that you caught it. And that's where I think she stumbles, because I think the social issues are fine. This is set in the modern day. These are teenagers. They are embroiled in social issues. But rather than just like let them stand for themselves, the issues stand for themselves, the themes stand for themselves, she explains it. She makes sure we got it. And that was, I think, her downfall for me. So like we would see something happen, and then rather than just like letting us see it, internalize it, and move along, a character will inevitably have to spell it out for us in dialogue that sounds just the most unnatural that you've ever heard dialogue be. There was a lot of how do you do fellow kids, and also that is not how people talk happening in this book, and that's unfortunate. Sometimes there would be excellent dialogue when she just let the characters interact naturally, but whenever she was trying to beleaguer one of her points, it was just the clunkiest thing. And I was like, oh, Alexa, will you please trust your reader? I know they're teenagers, but please trust them to get what you're putting down instead of having to just spell it out for them. Now, maybe this isn't her fault. Maybe she had it more subtle in an earlier draft and her publisher or editor made her spell it out. I could see that happening. The publishing industry, the more I see of it, the less I want of it. So it's possible that it's not even her fault that it's so heavy-handed. Because I know she likes to explore these themes, and I'm fine with that. It's just when it gets really like just over the top, like the character has to explain it, that I run into the problem. So one of the social themes that I wanted to talk about, and I forgot to put in the video, that Alexa likes to cover is wealth and privilege through wealth. And I think it is a theme that she really struggles with, because I'm going to go ahead and make an assumption about her that might be completely wrong.
But I think Alexa, her family probably had at least a decent amount of money. Just from the vibe I get from her books, she has never been poor. And when she writes poor characters, it tends to be very clumsy. She either tends to write wealthy characters, or if her characters are poor, they make friends with wealthy characters. And when she tries to explore the theme of privilege and wealth specifically, like she explores privilege a lot, and privilege with gender and privilege with race, but when she explores privilege with wealth specifically, it is the clumsiest. And I think that is because she herself has had a decent amount of money all of her life. That's just a guess, but it's just a vibe that I get from reading her books, because she doesn't seem to quite know how to explore privilege of wealth and economic disparity.
So unfortunately, I don't have too much else to say about this book. I wish I could gush about it. I wish I could rant about it. But honestly, ultimately, it ended up right in the middle for me, just mid. And that's fine. There is this sort of weird expectation that goes around on YouTube that authortubers are supposed to be able to write exceptional books. Like, for some reason, because we talk about writing books, that should mean that we write books that are just the best thing you've ever read, and we're allowed to write mid books. I don't know if this shocks or astounds you, but just like the authors who are out there writing without talking about it on YouTube, our books are allowed to be mid, and Alexa's books are allowed to be mid. And like, I'm sure there are lots of teenagers who this book is intended for who really enjoyed it, and you guys know there's somebody to love every book. But for me, this was mid.
So one thing that I forgot to mention also, I think in the video, that I definitely meant to mention, is that I will say that I was really pleased with the progress that Alexa's prose have made at this point. Just on a prose level, I think she has leveled up. I know she came from a starting place of journalism, and so has been working on upping her fiction prose game, and I think this book is definitely the best that I have seen from her. So it's really awesome to follow an author and see them leveling up some skills. And I think her prose was like markedly better than her last book in this one.
I will continue to read Alexa's books because I want to see her succeed, and I'm reviewing this one just because, well, she's a YouTuber, I'm a YouTuber. I felt like I should talk about it. But what do you think? Did you read Pretty Dead Queens? Did you enjoy it? Did you hate it? Comment below and let me know. Have you read any of Alexa's books? Did you give up on her back when she was doing her like weird space romance that was pretty flawed? Like, I think I gave her still like around 3-star ratings just because I wanted to be encouraging, but they were pretty flawed. I think she definitely has found her niche a lot more comfortably within the realm of thriller, and I think she's only getting better at that, so hopefully this will be like her new happy place as an author. If you have a favorite thriller, comment that below. I don't know what to do for an outro now that I'm going to try to put all of my pluggables like in the middle of the video. So comment below what you think I should do for an outro. Thanks so much for watching, or probably, let's be real, listening. And I will see all of you again next time with whatever it is I happen to be doing next time. Bye!
This is Sparta!
Actually, this is just Julian Greystokes' channel. But here on my channel, we love us some patrons. Patrons like Sunny Shy, Nico, Saga, Sarah, Kat, 78 Kilograms of Shade, Veda, Ingrid, Roma, Pansing Pony, Julius the Nice Dragon, Haley, Sam, Kira, Kohikaro, Mooney, Maria, Kristen, Bear, Jojo Bookish, Lauren, Robin, Ursula, KJ, Lafone, Amanda, Celia, Alyssa, Rita, Deborah, Afra, Melissa, Swamp Goblin Waifu, Sophia, Marween, Kit, Hidden Glade, The Unraveled Legion, Belle Sterling, Patrick, Anne Sophie, Callison, Ray, Shelby, Zaire, Jesper, Rennie, Scribbling Cat, Savvy, Jenny, Amanda, Lisa, and Sarah. Thanks so much for your continued support, everyone. And if you would like to become a patron, you totally can. And then you can hear me say your name at the end of my videos.